Hello there, YouTube land.
Welcome back.
Today we thought we'd talk about a movie that was actually one of the first films that Tabby and I saw in the theater together.
Yeah, it was 2012, and it was called The Raven.
With John Cusack.
John Cusack starring as Edgar Allan Poe.
And Tabby and I are pretty huge Poe fans.
Go figure.
Yeah, it's kind of almost a cliche thing for goths to like Poe, but...
What is your favorite Poe?
My favorite Poe story is The Cask of Amontillado.
Aha. I admit I like The Raven, but I also like The Telltale Heart.
Mm-hmm. And I do have a soft spot for The Fall of the House of Usher, not because of the story, but there is a made-for-TV film that I fell in love with as a child.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of that one.
Yeah.
But we digress.
Yes.
So, The Raven. And this also has a couple other people that are a little bit more known later on, and that is, I never get her right, Alice Eve, and oddly enough, has Luke Evans in it.
Yeah. You know, Luke Evans has actually had a very wide-ranging career, and
he has.
I'm always surprised when he shows up in films because I'm like, I only ever remember, you know, like Dracula Untold and a couple other things, and yet he's been in like tons of films. It's so funny.
He has. He does do a very versatile character.
Mm-hmm.
So does John Cusack, and I think that's why he made a pretty good Poe. My favorite part. So I guess what the premise is they have a murderer, a serial killer on the loose, and he's kind of moving through the MO of Poe's work.
Yeah.
So if you think like The Pit and the Pendulum,
so on and so forth.
So on and so forth. But at one point, there's a fire in Edgar's apartment. And Edgar Allan Poe has, in this movie, I don't know if he actually ever did.
I'm not sure.
He has a pet raccoon. And the fire department, you know, it's kind of a loss of, but he has this box, and Cusack as Poe says, yeah, I can tell by the sound of his voice he's mine. And it was just a little chittering raccoon. So it was just that moment of, aww.
Which, you know, truthfully, having a raccoon as a pet, I actually once had a teacher that was taking care of some young raccoons that were found that had been abandoned by their mother. And raccoons are not easy animals to keep. She ultimately had to release them because, of course, they're wild creatures and prone to rabies and whatnot. But the idea that Poe had a raccoon as a pet kind of gives rise to how much of a scatterbrain he himself is. Because in order to keep a creature like that that's going to completely trash your house on a regular basis, and he was happy to do so.
He was happy. That was his pet.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, I used to work with veterinarians and also with rehab centers. I had to raise possums once in a backpack.
Oh my gosh.
So I would go with my little lunch pail of tiny little bottles with the formula in my backpack full of possums. That was hard. That was hard work.
I bet, but adorable.
They were cute.
Yeah.
Until they got big. And then they needed to release back in the wild because they were very hissy.
Yeah. Well, that kind of happens with the possums.
But this movie is, I mean, it has its ups and downs. Not a lot of people liked it.
Tabby and I liked it.
Oh,
it's not the best horror film in the world.
No.
But there are enough entertaining points that made it an entertaining film to watch.
It was a good nod to the literature of Poe. And I won't spoil the ending, but it kind of lent to his actual ending.
Yeah.
Because throughout the story, they actually thought it was Poe that was murdering these people, and it wasn't.
No.
So,
you know, it's kind of sad that a lot of younger people today only know of Poe's works by way of English class in school. In his time, Poe was like, you know, the equivalent of like, you know, Stephen King.
Yes.
You know, he was very popular, but he was also feared because he wrote about all this dark ideas and murders and all this stuff.
He wrote about all the stuff that nobody wanted to actually admit happened.
Yeah.
The nitty-gritty, the dark, the
Macabre.
The depths of human souls, and how you can have that darkness residing in them.
Yeah. The one thing I always wished that Poe would have tackled was vampires.
Yeah.
He never once did vampires, and I always found that a shame because I think he would have added to the genre.
I think he would have added to the genre, and I also think that, in a way, he kind of gave them an atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
He gave vampires that atmosphere, because you think about the modern vampire, they always go back to a little bit of Poe's settings.
Yeah, because he was really, well, you could say that he was one of the forerunners in romantic Gothic literature.
Yes.
And back then it wasn't called Gothic or anything like that.
No.
But looking back on it, it's romantic Gothic literature.
It is.
So that's kind of an interesting part about it. Specifically, this movie does a good job of displaying all that, though. The settings are dark, but there's color. The costuming is very, very much, kind of Victorian. The correct time period, but it also continues on with that color palette.
It does, and that lends to that whole feel, and it also, I think that anybody who watched this movie, maybe that would inspire them to go actually read his works.
Yeah. The other thing that, kind of as a side note, you can see where Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails was inspired by Poe, specifically in, like, his video for The Perfect Drug with the absinthe.
Yeah.
You can really kind of get the same type of vibe from that video as you can from reading a lot of Poe's works.
I mean, you're looking at how I think they put this together was a little bit, if anybody has seen, like, the more modern Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., kind of that setting combined with some of the settings from Dracula, they kind of coalesced it into, this particular movie, which was very well done.
Yeah, I mean, again, not all the acting's top-notch.
No, by all means, no.
Some of the dialogue really gets a bit at times. But overall, it's an entertaining film.
It's entertaining because you kind of get the seriousness of this serial killer, the accusation, like that almost desperation of, I didn't do this, why are you blaming me?
Yeah.
But you also get the comedic relief.
Yes.
In some places.
And Cusack is actually really good at comedy.
He is.
He doesn't get a lot of credit for that, but he actually does have very good comedic timing.
He does, and it's in that kind of wry, sarcastic way. So, check it out.
Yeah. And also comment down below with what your favorite Edgar Allan Poe story is, because we'd like to know.
We'd like to know.
So until next time.
Bye.